Hey everyone, Clarke here, and in today's video, I have another great conversation to share with you with a friend of mine, Samantha King, who is an online business course mentor. She helps entrepreneurs create courses that they put online to create passive and residual income alongside their main business. I can't wait for you to hear Samantha's story of how she went from being a teacher to having children to starting a company while she's raising her kids and homeschooling. And now she's supporting all these people. And she bought an RV. You got to hear the story about the RV. But before we get started, please make sure you check out the description below because all of Samantha's links are listed below, as well as a summit that is coming up. So you'll want to definitely check that out. Okay, on to Samantha's interview. Samantha King, you are in conversation with me today. I am so excited to introduce you to the community, for the community to hear your story, where you've been, where you are, where you might be going, and everything in between, because your story and what you do and how you do it from home is pretty remarkable. And we do have a relationship outside of this conversation. So I want to make sure that's very clear,
Yeah.
just to make sure people know. But Samantha, just what? How? Where did all of this amazingness that you're working through and what you're doing now, where did it all start?
Yeah, it really started from, I go all the way back to high school because when I left high school, nobody really had ever said to me, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And so it led me down a path where I was making decisions based on, hey, if I have to spend 4 years studying something, I might as well study this. And I actually ended up taking classical studies. And that is like ancient Greece and Roman history. So I was
Okay.
learning Latin at one point.
Okay.
And still nobody asked, like, what are you going to do with this? And I actually had, it's funny because I have younger sisters. There's actually 18 years between the oldest, my brother, and my
Wow.
sister, who is the youngest in my family. And my youngest was in school and I was volunteering in her school. And the teacher said to me, oh, you should be a teacher. You would be good at that. So of course I was like, sure, all right, let's do that then. And I ended up in teachers college, and I didn't get into the classroom right away. I did sales and marketing for a publishing company here in Toronto.
Okay.
I worked at daycares, summer camps. I had all these different jobs. And finally I decided maybe I should, go to the classroom. Maybe I should do something like this. And I was in there and I was supplying and I was working with students. And I realized that it just didn't align. And it wasn't that I didn't love working with kids, because absolutely I do. You said I'm running my business, I work from home because I've been homeschooling my daughter for the last 4 years. But
Wow.
it was the other stuff, right? And so sometimes we can absolutely love what we do, but there's the other pieces of our jobs that we're like, that doesn't really align with me. And I felt like it was trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And so, at that time, there were a ton of teachers, not a lot of jobs. So I ended up giving up my spot within the board to somebody so that somebody else who wanted to teach could, and kind of continued on my journey. And after I had my second child, my son Max, who is now 6, I had a really severe bout with postpartum depression,
Okay.
postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, and it was a long journey back. It was, how you see those memes on social media where it's the premise is the mom's in the bathroom and the kid's hands are under the door.
Yeah.
Well, my husband couldn't leave the room without me standing outside of the door, terrified that one of the kids was going to want something, right? And I had an infant child, and my daughter was 4 at that time. My daughter had just been diagnosed with autism. I'm a two-time autism mom, because my son is also autistic, and it was really a dark and scary place. And thankfully, I had a doctor who was proactive. I did the medication. I had people to talk to. I was very, very blessed in that I had people around me who were like, nope, we're going to get you help. We're going to make sure that you're okay. But on the other side of that, it came to a point where I really felt, you know what, if I'm going to be away from my kids and I'm going to be living my dream life, and I'm going to live the life I want, then this is the time to do it. This is the time to do the things that have always excited me, the things that have always said, hey, let's get up in the morning. Like you always say, right? Like, let's get excited to get up in the morning. And I had always been interested in online business. And I had always been interested in entrepreneurship. And so I decided at that point to go out and start my own business. And I still wasn't quite at the online business mark, but I worked supporting women in business for, for a couple of years. And then I started homeschooling my daughter.
Okay.
We moved somewhere where it was time to homeschool my daughter. And that's when I really started to get into the online market.
Wow. So postpartum depression, which I also had with my first son. Thankfully, it didn't take very long to move away from it, but it is scary having a baby and not understanding what's going on in your head, right? Being nervous about somebody needing something or even doing something. Like, I get you on that. And the fact that you got through that, you beat it, you won, to finding out both of your children have autism. Is that right? Just want to make sure. And at that point you go, well, if I'm going to make this life what I want it, I might as well do it now.
Yeah.
And before we move into what you're doing now, I want to talk about the feelings. If you can take yourself back there just for a couple minutes, the feelings you had when you were making that move. Because most people get stuck right there and they're still living where you were 6 years ago, right? So what feelings did you have? What did you have to overcome? Did you have mentors? Like, what propelled, like, what got you through that the comfort zone, I guess we could call it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, when you decide to make that step, you get super excited. You go out, you start building the business. You're super excited because you finally made this decision where you're living the life you want to live. And then you find that it's really lonely, right? Because there's nobody there's no coffee machine talk as people are grabbing a coffee in between tasks at work. You're all alone. And of course, we're being surrounded by all of these social media feeds of online gurus, I almost call them lifestyle entrepreneurs, or the celebrity entrepreneurs, I think is what they're called. And they're talking about how great life is, motivational posts. You're seeing people, that you're meeting at networking events doing the exact same thing, right? Motivational posts, super excited. And it's really, you're like, hey, why can't that life be mine? What's wrong with me? Why am I not having that much fun? Why am I not closing that many sales? Why am I not having, the 5-6 figure months? And really, you're comparing yourself to somebody, you're comparing your second step to somebody else's 200th step.
I love that.
But it becomes very daunting. You're also fighting, for me, I was also fighting things like, who am I to think of myself as an expert? I don't know everything about what I do. Who am I to charge that much? Should I be charging that much? Will people pay me that much? How am I gonna eat this week because I need to be generating my revenue? And we throw up all these blocks of self-doubt. And then imposter syndrome crawls in. Right? Because you have people from your old life still on your social media feeds watching what you're doing now. And you're like, oh no, what are they going to think? Right? What are they going to think about me now that I'm doing this? Right? Especially for me, not a lot of people leave teaching and go out on their own, right? They don't leave the security of teaching to say, hey, yeah, now I'm going to just run my own business. and it's all going to be up to chance. There's no more like regular paycheck, pension. Like, yeah, I just left that behind me.
Why not?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like you take all those what ifs or who am I and you build like a brick wall. And then the imposter syndrome is like the cement block that you put on top of the wall. And then you're like, I'll just go back that way.
Exactly.
So I want to know how you broke through the wall.
Yeah.
So you built it with all these thoughts, comments, preconceived notions or ideas, but how did you go, forget it, I'm going after this?
Yeah, I have worked with mentors along the way. And I'm going to be honest, I've worked with mentors who didn't quite give me the right advice. Or they gave me the right advice, but they didn't give me the roadmap to get to that point.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
And I think that's really important because, you know, we look at the gurus online. And, you know, we first start our businesses with that idea that you got to get your name out there. So we're networking, we're at social media events, and we're building our social media profiles, accounts, audiences, all those things. And then usually we start to see the gurus online, and you guys know the ones I'm talking about. And they're telling,
I'm just kidding.
right? Yeah, we could name them. And they tell us, you know, you got to build your list, and you give away free things to build your list. And then we're watching their social media, and they're just posting motivational and inspirational stuff. And we're like, oh, okay, so I'm going to do that too. But we're missing that piece, right? We're missing that roadmap. We're missing the how to get from what we're seeing them do and how they're actually generating revenue. Because what we're not piecing together is that they're selling on their email list, which is why there's real estate on their social media account to just post motivational, inspirational stuff. And so, you know, with the mentors I was working with, I was missing key pieces like that. You know, they were saying things like, here, you should be charging at
Double
least
your rate. Double your rate.
right? Yeah, you should be charging at least this, but not telling me that until I build the authority and make sure I have the audience underneath me who is willing to pay that rate, then I have to have a pricing strategy to do that, right?
Yeah.
So I almost feel like, you know, how I got out of that was stopping and really starting to evaluate who I was working with. And one of the questions I always have to ask myself is, you know, how are they generating revenue? How are they making money? I have to understand that piece, because then I can start to understand and apply what they're teaching me to my business.
Yeah.
It was also just putting myself out there, which is absolutely terrifying, because I'm what they call like an extroverted introvert. So when I'm out and about, like, and you know me, you've seen me, I have a ton of energy. I'll talk to anybody, like lots of things going on, but that takes a lot out of me. So getting myself out there was hard. And by getting myself out there, I mean like volunteering to speak places. Anytime somebody asked me to be interviewed, like I would just say yes. It was like the year of yes. Remember Shonda Rhimes' books? And she just started saying yes. That's what I started doing. But I had to start doing it with a strategy. And it wasn't until I kind of dialed into, and I think this is something that you'll probably resonate with. I have always been a strategist. Like that is one of my skill sets. And what happens is we, especially as women in business, you know, strategy becomes a dirty word. And for some reason, we feel the need to replace it with intentional and other words that are like that, rather than just saying, you need to have a strategy. And so I had up until that point, I had started to like push that down, push that skill set down. And it wasn't until I kind of just said, you know what, this isn't working for me. I need to tune into myself. I need to honor my gifts and go with that and really lean into that, that I was able to start to see what other people were doing and start to create strategies for me that was going to get me out of what I call the friend zone, which is where I had been putting myself.
And I love that, because one strategy doesn't always work for every single person. We have to take the strategy and almost manipulate it or change it a little bit, right? So even in my intuitive CFO program, there is a strategy, but there's a reason why intuitive is
Mhm.
before CFO. So I'm with you. It's all about strategy, but then allowing yourself to honor yourself, honor your gifts, like you've said, and
Mhm.
let that shine through. Because in the end, that's what people want. They want you.
Yeah.
And when you get to a point where you understand that people want you and not what you sell, they will always buy from you because it's you,
Mhm.
right? And I love that that's how you use to break through. If
Mhm.
we go back a year from now, 2020, I
Mhm.
know you had audacious plans. 2019, I know you like hired a marketing company. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And
Yeah.
then like COVID hit.
Yeah.
So another transition for you in a way, because you had to figure out how you were going to maneuver, knowing this is what you were going to do. Here was your strategy. But
Mhm.
then when COVID hit, it seemed like you knew that strategy wasn't going to work anymore.
Mhm. Yeah,
So let's
absolutely.
talk about that transition.
And you're right. I had hired a big marketing firm. I had a ton of different tables at big vendor shows around the area here in Toronto, including the National Women's Show. And I
That's a
had
big one
really made
too.
2020 the year that I was going to go after some big, audacious goals. And then COVID hit. And it was terrifying for everybody. And you know me, I watch a ton of television, for better or for worse. So for me, it was really about that episode of Friends where they're trying to move Ross's couch. Like he's bought a couch and they're moving it into his apartment. And so they're trying to go up the stairs and he's screaming at them, pivot. And really that's what I was hearing in my head was David Schwimmer's voice yelling as Ross, pivot,
Love it.
because really we were at a point where we were being asked to repeat or evolve, and what was happening around us was making it very clear that evolution was going to be the only way to go. We had to evolve as business owners. Now I was really lucky because as part of my journey out of the friend zone, I had spent some time really figuring out what my one thing was, right? Because a lot of the time in our niche we try to serve everybody, and in doing so, we serve nobody. And that might be because you're not sure how to niche down, you're not sure what your one thing is, or it could be that you're terrified to niche down because then you're going to lose a ton of opportunities. But for me, as somebody who loves the online world, has been really focused on online entrepreneurship and learning about it for years, and was a former teacher, online courses made a ton of sense for me. So I was very lucky in I had figured out that my one thing was becoming an online course mentor and teaching service providers how to package and sell what they know into these products that would run without them.
Love it.
And that kind of is what my big audacious goals were built around. But when I couldn't do it in the way that I had planned to, when the strategy had to change, for some people that could be terrifying because this is the roadmap, these are the steps. But as you were saying in your program, you have very much the same thing in that here's the strategy. But for each and every one of us, we have to be ready to take what works for us and leave what doesn't.
Yep.
And I
Exactly.
think that was a real, for me, that was a real like weight lifted off of my shoulder when I was like, okay, I'm seeing these practices in my industry. I'm seeing these strategies in my industry, but I can and I should take what works for me and leave what doesn't. And that's what really helped me pivot last year.
I love that. And so what has happened since pivot?
Yeah, well, so many
You need a
there's been.
shirt. You just need a shirt. You need a pivot shirt. I'm just saying. I think that
Can I tell you a
that
secret?
what?
I bought one on the weekend.
That says pivot?
The scene from the episode of him saying pivot. I bought one on the weekend.
That is
Absolutely.
intentional. That's the universe telling you you did a good thing. You're in the right space, my friend. So what has happened? Here we are about a year later. Fill me in. What's going on?
Yeah, there's so many amazing things going on. My course makers program is getting ready to launch, and we are doing more than talking about just the online courses. We're actually talking about my process of going from friend zone to authority island, which really is, you know, we put ourselves in the friend zone where we become, through the processes I was talking about before, we become that really great business owner online who gives things away for free. And we aren't sure whether we're not sure how to monetize, or we're scared to ask for the sale. You know, we have now gotten to a point where our audience, when we do ask for the sale, they say, oh, I'll just wait until your next free thing. Yeah.
Could you give it to me for free? I have a question before you go on though. You
Mhm.
said from friend zone front to authority island, which I love. I feel like I can see the boat going over there and then burn the boat. But do you think one reason why people, business owners, entrepreneurs tend to stay in this friend zone is because they don't know their worth?
Absolutely. They struggle with a ton of different things, right? And I think, you know, when we were talking about that wall and then imposter syndrome being the cement, one of the bricks in that wall is not knowing your worth. Who am I to charge that much? Who am I to who am I to ask for that? Will they pay me for that? Really not stepping into the fact that you are an expert. Like you said, your audience is following you because you're giving them something.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know everything about your industry to be an expert. You just need to be a couple of steps ahead from the people behind you who have said, hey, you can help me. Please, please keep doing what you're doing.
And I find too, I have a community that I used to do that, right? I had online programs. I wouldn't sell them for more than $100 because I was like, well, if it's priced low, they can get what they need and go buy something else, or more people will buy it. And what
Mhm.
I realized going through that is I was actually doing them and myself a disfavor,
Mhm.
because that price point showed no value. Right.
Mhm.
And what I've also noticed was, and this is just really recently, because I stopped coaching in 2020. Now I'm doing specifically group coaching,
Mhm.
but it was like, I thought I was in the friend zone.
Mhm.
But then when I put my offers up, I realized I've been on authority island pretending I was in the friend zone. And I think that's something else that people don't realize is some people are just waiting for you to say, here's an offer.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're like, how much? When do I get? Like right now, I did a Facebook Live earlier this week about, doing a masterclass today about time manifesting. So I did a Facebook Live on Wednesday, and in that, people are like, we need a course on this. Wasn't my plan. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, we'll do a course in September. And I had people asking me for PayPal links to buy
Mhm.
the course that didn't have a title. I don't know what I'm teaching, but people have bought it. And
Mhm.
that's one thing I think what you're saying is people have to get in that boat. And
Yeah.
like sometimes you paddle, sometimes you have a motor to
Mhm.
get to Authority Island, or at least get your headspace there, because you don't know you're there yet.
Yeah. And one of the key things that you've done and learned, and I've learned over time, is that, you know, start asking people. Start asking your audience what they want. Start listening to them. And some people will say, oh, well, I posted a poll on Instagram and not a lot of people answered. Yeah, I want you, when I say start asking people, I mean emailing your customers, emailing the people on your list, asking them specifically, hey, can you do this for me? Right? Really taking that action and then listening, right? Because as you said, this wasn't on your plan,
It
but
was
this is what your audience wants and needs.
Yeah.
And to really, you know, get to authority island, and whether you, like you said, whether you paddle, whether you like have to use your hands for a little bit, like however you get there, you know, it's a big part of that is listening to your audience and delivering what they're asking you to deliver, right? And it's so key because they will see the value and they will show up and they'll be the ones that are like, well, like here, where's the money? Like, how do I pay? Right? And I have people, and I think the thing is too, like, it's not just you. I have people that I do that with as well, where I'm like, oh yeah, sure. What do you want me to do? Great. Okay, awesome. Right?
You're like this. You're like, okay, here it is.
Yeah,
How do you, take
yeah,
it? Just take it,
yeah.
right?
Right? And the thing is, you know, as you're moving from the friend zone and even as you're getting started in your journey, one of the things that I would encourage everybody to remember is that those are the people who are your people.
Mhm.
The people who are saying to you, who are you to do that? That's too much money. It's scary. It doesn't feel very good when you hear that kind of stuff, but we have to just say, yeah, okay, that's no problem. I'm sorry you feel that way. Good luck on your journey and move on.
Yeah.
Because when we focus on the people who are our people, who are, as you say, our ride or die fans,
Yeah.
that's where the magic happens. And that's where the impact is going to take place, because we all feel, that we're here for a reason,
Yeah.
right? You only live once. I'm here for a reason. There's something here that I'm meant to do, or a few things that I'm meant to do while I'm here. And if I spend too much time worrying about the people who are telling me no or telling me I'm charging too much, then I'm not going to be able to help the people that I'm supposed to be here to make.
Yeah.
To help.
And do you feel as you get into the authority, from the friend to the authority, that people will ask you, like, how much is your service or your program or your package? You give them the price, and they start to not make it about you and your price. They
Mhm.
start to make it about them. Like, oh, I can't afford that. Oh, I'm too afraid to spend. Like, they know they need you, but
Mhm.
it gets to a point where they're not questioning you so much on what you're charging, but more they're questioning if they should actually put the money out, which is a totally different energy,
Mhm.
right? I feel like there's three people. There's the people saying, how dare you? I can't
Yeah.
believe you're charging that much. Then there's the people who are like, I really want in, but I'm too afraid to spend. And then there's the ride or dies.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
don't know about you for where you're at, but sometimes I look at my ride or dies and I'm like, I think it's cool you're here, but I just don't understand why.
Yeah, it happens. It happens because for us, that's our own imposter syndrome trying to creep back up, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's very key to realize that once you get to Authority Island, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have times where you're like, oh my goodness, I don't understand, or you're questioning your worth, or you almost want to, like, you find yourself like going backwards and like you're back in the boat paddling to the friend zone. You know that it's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing affirmation reminder that you are worth it. But I absolutely think we all have those moments where we're like, okay, like this is what you want. Okay, I don't understand it, but yep, sure, okay, you're here, and it's awesome, and we continue to support them. But absolutely, there's times where we're like, I don't get it. Sure.
So when you have I don't get it, the imposter syndrome starting to creep in, how do you remove it? How do you move past it?
I think the biggest thing, like you said, sometimes the energy is their energy and not ours. So reminding ourselves, really just embracing kind of what they're saying, and reminding ourselves that, we may be thinking that we don't get it, but it doesn't matter because they get it. So just like when somebody's saying to you, you're charging too much, or um, I don't have the money, or I'm scared to spend on it. We have to remind ourselves that that's them. It's not a reflection of my value. It's a reflection of where they're at right now.
Right.
And it's okay, right? It's okay that they're there, but I can't let it nail me down. There's nothing that I'm not doing anything. It's not a reflection of me. It's the same thing. We kind of almost have to do it the opposite. When they want to give us money, we have to accept that they see value. They get what we're doing. We're helping them. And whether we understand it or not doesn't matter, because their energy and their beliefs are there and they're valid. And so a lot of the time, it really is just practicing. And I do it, I honestly practice this with, even when my kids say nice things to me, but even with them, rather than saying, you're too kind, oh, you're too kind, when somebody compliments you, just say, thank you,
Yeah.
and smile. And it can feel like, and I know it's not just me, and I know it's probably not just women, but we very much are like, oh, you're too kind, or like they're just being nice. No, I just started one day. I just was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start saying thank you. So every time somebody says something nice, I go, thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm like that with receiving too. When people are like, here, you're like, oh, you didn't have to, or, oh,
Mhm.
no, it's okay. Like, I'm always like, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Because I find this, and this might be a little more like energy spiritual, but if you don't accept the compliment, the gift,
Mhm.
you're actually preventing them from receiving because they're trying to give to you.
Yeah.
So even if it's like your hair is gorgeous, If you're like, oh, stop, like, you don't have to be so, just say thank you, because they need to give that compliment or that
Mhm.
gift as much as you need to receive it,
Yeah.
which I think is really neat. I want to jump on to another piece, and you brought it up when you were talking about the celebrity gurus who, we were naming on our
Mhm.
fingers. I'm sure
Yeah.
we all have the same names, and that's cool. Like, good for
Yeah.
them for doing what they're doing. But what do you feel, or how do you feel, or how do you help your clients with the whole like competition? Meaning, and it comes from imposter syndrome too, but you're
Mhm.
on social, right? We're on and
Yeah.
we're like, oh, she's giving a course. What does
Mhm.
she know on time management? What
Mhm.
is he doing? And it's like we're almost creating competition with people we know or don't know. Like, how do
Mhm.
you move past that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things with social media, that like social media is really great because we can connect with people from all over the world, but it also has a lot of very strong, what I call setbacks, right? And one of them is that, you can start scrolling and start creating competition in your head. And people will say, well, competition doesn't exist. There's enough business for everybody. Well, competition does exist, but it doesn't have to be that toxic, mean girl type behavior.
I
It
like
doesn't have to be that kind
that.
of relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so, how do I help my audience through that? Well, one of the things I really say to them is, look, everybody's teaching people how to create online courses. So, trust me, I totally get it, especially if you're in a saturated market. And I always say, anybody can have an online course. And I have. I've talked to real estate agents, mortgage brokers, travel agents, as well as coaches, consultants, and digital marketing experts. And those real estate agents, they get it, right? I mean, if you've been in a networking room, you know that like the real estate agent, there's usually at least three of them in the room. So they're used to like, hey, my market is saturated. And
Yeah.
in the online space, we start to see how saturated many of the markets are. And so part of the process of getting to Authority Island that I work through in my Course Makers program, because like I said, we don't just focus on the course, we actually focus on Friendzone to Authority Island. And part of that is really looking at your niche. And your niche is in your story, right?
Good.
Your niche is in your story. And so, really looking at how you are perfectly poised to help your audience is going to be the first key to figuring out how you stand out and how you are different than your competitors. And then from there, it's about looking at, what your competitors are doing. And by the way, not everybody who's, for example, in my industry, not everybody who is teaching people how to create online courses are my competitors. It's really just the ones who are kind of dancing in the same niche as me, who have similar stories to me. And so then I'm going to look at it and I'm going to list out the things they're doing. I'm going to look at what they're doing. I'm going to list out the things that they're doing amazingly, because they're great at they must be great at what they do, right? Because they have an audience who trusts them. Then I'm going to look at what my audience wants, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to look closely at a second time at my competitors and figure out where they're dropping the ball.
That's
Where
good.
are they missing the mark, right? Because we're all like, we're usually missing one angle. We all are, until somebody points it out to us, right? We can't cover everything. And that's where I'm going to start to position myself, is where they're missing the mark. Because now that I've noticed it, I can go back to my story and figure out how I can uniquely help my audience.
Yeah.
So a great example of this for me, I mean, I create online courses. And I help other people to do the same. There's big names in that. And the big names, what they're teaching people to do is create the course so that the course is the business. But my audience, the course is not the business. They still love their one-on-one work. They love the impact they can give in their group coaching.
Right.
And when they try to launch the course as the business, you've seen it. They bring it out once or twice.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't fit again, right? It's that square peg in a circle hole. It doesn't fit, and then they end up dropping it to the side, which is a
Yeah.
huge waste. And so for me, not only am I different in that I'm a former teacher and I focus specifically on curriculum design, I also spend a lot of time doing that foundational work. And that also comes from my story, because I was working with mentors who weren't having me do the foundational work in my business. And that's why my course focuses on, Friendzone to Authority Island. Authority Island, part of that is knowing how to monetize, and we're monetizing in a course. And then I take you through your customer journey, idea, curriculum design, and then a strategy to launch. And then I help you find the people to put in place to help you launch.
That's amazing.
Right. And so it's really about knowing, guys, what your one thing is
Yeah.
and how you stand out. And
Okay,
then,
let's talk about that for a second. How
yeah.
do you find your one thing? Briefly, like I know this is like probably part of what you
Oh,
do, but
it's a
give like
huge
a couple tips. How do I
thing.
find my one thing, Samantha?
Yeah. So the one, it's your one thing is, again, it's what makes you, it's in your story, and it's what makes you uniquely poised to help business owners. Right. So for you, you've been doing CFO work for years, but in the CFO industry, accounting, bookkeeping, in the numbers world, it's always very serious, very dollars and cents. And your approach very much brings in that intuitive piece.
Yeah.
That's where I'm assuming the intuitive CFO was born, because you figured out that your one thing, came from you figured out what your story was, what made you different than your competitors, and how you were uniquely poised to help everybody. And the intuitive CFO was born.
Yeah. And then being where I've been for 24 years, it comes to other things too, right? So even though I do numbers and I do strategies and we talk about energy and intuition, I also am now teaching confidence, because you need that, right? With everything you're doing. And we talk about time management. So for people who are watching, when Samantha says you're one thing, it's not like you're stuck there forever, because it branches out. You just need to build the trunk of the tree first, and then let the limbs organically or intuitively grow. I don't know where that came from, but that was really good.
Yeah.
Like write that one down.
Yeah.
So I have a question. If you could go back to when this started 6-7 years ago, what is something you would have told Samantha then that you know?
Yeah. The biggest thing I would have told her, and you'll be surprised, because it's not like believe in yourself. It's actually not motivational. It's more strategic. And it's funny because I guess the first thing I would say is lean into your strategy side. But the second thing I would say is do the foundational work. Spend the time figuring out your niche, figuring out your one thing, because as you said, if you can build a solid trunk, things will branch out based on what your audience tells you they want.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But without the trunk, you're not going to get the audience who is very crystal clear about what you do, how you can help them, and why they should pay you to help them.
And what would you tell her personally? Not business related, but what would you tell Samantha of 2015 personally?
Personally, I would tell her to spend some time figuring out what she wants and then start going for it. So, I've always wanted, I decided, in the last 5 years when I started doing that, I want to run my business while driving around in an RV. I started to take the steps to do that. And this year we bought our RV. So we're on the path, right? Yeah. And I probably would have been there sooner if I had taken the time to really figure out what are my big, scary dreams that I want to accomplish. How do I want to live my life?
I love that. We just made one of those this morning. We were talking about, because we want to build, we call it the estate out in the country, but we also want to have a condo in North Vancouver, BC. And we were driving this morning, and out of nowhere, I turned to Roger, my husband, and I go, I think we need to buy the condo first. And he's like, why? I'm like, because we'll turn into an Airbnb, then that will make money. And then that'll help us to build the estate. Like, am I actually saying to buy the condo first?
Yeah.
What? And it's exactly what you just said, like the strategy and not being afraid to take the steps. So, because I said to him, we're getting financially to a point where we can go do that. So what do we do? But like make a choice, make a decision, right? And are you going to be happy with that decision? So I love what you're saying, because the strategy, you just got to make a choice, right?
That's right. And know that, you may get down the road and go, wait, this isn't what I wanted. Oops. So make a choice.
Just backpedal.
Right.
Yeah, make a decision. If you No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna say that right. Think of
Mhm,
Samantha. I always call her Sam. 10 years from today. What is
mhm.
she doing? What is Samantha King of 2031 doing?
She is definitely traveling around in her RV, seeing parts of the world. She may even sometimes be jumping on a plane going over to Europe because, of course, I do have that degree in ancient Greece and Rome. I'd like to see some of that stuff. But really, what she's doing is she's making money by following her interests and following the things that are really getting her excited about life. Whether that is, selling more graphic T-shirts because I love doing that, or traveling. One of the big dreams that I actually heard from the universe the other day was how cool would it be to lead like caravans of people in RVs and be like a tour guide to take them down to like Disney World or somewhere else in Canada or the US. So she's really just following those messages
Love it.
and generating revenue as she goes, doing things that she loves.
I
Probably while her kids are in tow because they've been in tow since, 2015 when I started this.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, as we wrap up, Samantha, the floor is yours. What do you want to say to the community? Is there anything on your heart you're just feeling this is the time? Share what's on your heart.
I think really one of the things we all need to remind ourselves, especially if we've learned anything from the last little while, pivoting probably was scary for you. It was scary for all of us. You're not alone in what you're going through, but having the courage just to take those steps is huge. And they don't have to be big steps. The steps you take don't have to be big. They just have to be taking you in the right direction. And sometimes, you may have to step 3 steps over to the side to continue on in the right direction, but that's okay. That's what life's about. It's just about making those choices and making sure that you're happy with the choices that you're making.
I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Samantha, for investing your time into this amazing community. I love watching your journey and your growth, and it's so exciting to see what you're doing now and where you're going
Mhm.
because you are literally, even though it's been 6 years in the making, you are literally just getting started. Like you're getting the
Mhm.
wind beneath your wings, like it's starting to
Yeah.
take off, which
Yeah.
is amazing. And in 5 years from now, we'd probably say the same thing, right? Because we're
Yeah.
always elevating and where we want to go. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
you being here. And what we'll do as well to those who are watching, make sure you check out the description below because Samantha's contacts, her website, an incredible summit that's coming up in August of 2020. Oh, I do this every time. I want to say 320s that's coming up in August of 2021. The link will be there for you as well.
Mhm.
Samantha, again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm honored that you're here, and I can't wait for everyone to hear the story you shared today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.